if we are true entrepreneurs, we make a way, we find a way, and we do it. It just should be done.
The future is not built by chance.
Okay, so in my opinion, you really need some competencies.
It is shaped by visionaries and those bold enough to take the risks that redefine possibilities.
For example, are you a risk taker? Are you prepared to sacrifice your house like I did? The family home was sold in order to have capital to start the business. That's now a risk taker.
From across Africa, we engage experts into powerful conversations that are shaping the future of business, leadership, innovation, and regional progress. Through stories of ambition, resilience, and transformation, we document the voices building tomorrow. Skyline Studios, in collaboration with Shingi Media and Youth Envoy magazine, presents the conversations that inspire, challenge, and shape the next generation of business leaders. I am Marvelous Chaparadza from Skyline Studios, and today I am in conversation with Nigel MK Chanakira, one of Zimbabwe's first investment bankers. You are watching a Skyline's Business Podcast.
So it's all about what? The appetite to start a business. And right now I was made a compelling offer. Simba, you wouldn't believe this. I was offered a global marketing experience. And the amount of money these guys want from me means I have to sell one of my vehicles in order to raise that capital, because I don't want to touch any other investment. I know my wife won't allow me to touch any investment. So I've got to look now within myself that what is it that I can do that doesn't affect the trajectory of the financial planning we've been doing as a household. So I sacrifice a vehicle. And that vehicle now is there. I'm not sure whether it's going to work. Okay. Now, does it work or not? That means I must have what we call proof of concept. In other words, I can't gamble too much and start on this venture unless I try it a little. And if it's working, then I can throw everything in. Are we together?
So it's a matter of having a prototype.
Yes. Have a prototype, put it out in the market, be researching, be panel beating when necessary, and then you go for a full-scale launch. That's what being an entrepreneur is. But am I frightened? Hell no. Because I'm an entrepreneur.
So, Nigel, can we really now say entrepreneurs are made or are born?
I think it's both. It's a lot of us tend to say it's either or, but I say it's both and. Because some are born with the creative juices in them, yes. Okay? Some are born without that naturally, but then they're exposed. So, for example, I was born into an entrepreneurial family. The very first bus company run by a black Rhodesian at the time, Southern Rhodesian, was a Chanakira. They registered modern omnibus company. Are we together? So what does that mean, Simba? It means from a young age, I grew up exposed to my dad and his brothers who were in the business of logistics, transport, buses, they had shops, and they were into farming. Okay, they employed people. So what did I see when I grew up? I grew up behind the counter, counting money. Every day I saw money. I saw my dad sit at the kitchen dining room table counting his money. And if my mom wanted school fees or anything else, he would then take from those proceeds and give it to her. That's the environment I grew up in. Now, would you say I was born an entrepreneur? No, I was exposed to entrepreneurship from a young age. Are we together? And I remember very much the discussions where my mom would come and say, no, we need money for this. And my dad would look at his money and do his sums and say, not today. Are we together? If he said not today, what that meant is that he needed to utilize that capital for something else. Then we go to what I would call a third phase, where you can aspire for entrepreneurship. And you say to yourself, okay, I am a worker. And in my case, I certainly worked for a couple of years. Okay? Now, when you work, you are exposed to banking. And then you say to yourself, but I can do this. Maybe I'm better off to be a bank owner than to be a bank employee. That's what we call experiential learning, which can then prompt you, particularly if you are a banker and you see how much money you are making for the company, and you say to yourself, then, although you naturally were not born into that environment, you perhaps were risk averse, but then you look at yourself and you say, I'm being exploited here. Let me go and start my own thing. The money is not enough for my needs, and therefore you develop an appetite. So under all those circumstances, I'll turn it around to you, Simba, and say, can we say entrepreneurs are born or they are made? It's both.
Yeah, pretty much both.
Yeah.
It's both. So if I wasn't born great and I want to achieve greatness, maybe I was born in a setting, let's say I'm from Chitungisa, and
Yes.
my family is not into business. It's a family of civil servants, maybe.
Okay.
And there's no way I will be exposed to that from my family.
Yes.
So where do we get that exposure outside the family setting?
I think we get it at work. I think we get it in our communities and societies, where you look around and you say, wow, the guys next door live a better lifestyle than us. And you find out, what does the dad do? And you hear he's a businessman. And you see his car, you see the way he dresses perhaps, and you look at your dad, you see the way he dresses, you look at your mom, the way she dresses, and that might within itself create the spark within you to say, andingade upenyu hwekuita se hwekumirira salary at the end of the month, and you want to touch money on a daily basis. So that then becomes the generator, isn't it?
Yeah, this reminds me of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Siba, over to you.
So I think I was just digesting what Nigel was saying about exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out if the channels that we go through every day, from the schools that we go to, the high schools, the universities, are they doing enough? You think they are doing quite enough to give people the exposure that is needed for us to go entrepreneurs?
Okay, so I think your question is a very deep one, Simba, because in my eyes, it starts with the curriculum, which is prescribed by government ordinarily. So you are told, you are a school, you get registered, you must teach maths, Shona, agriculture, but not entrepreneurship, not financial literacy. And so, where then do we get the entrepreneur? So I think the curriculum needs to be looked at. And I'm a huge fan of looking at the curriculum, tweaking it to include financial literacy and entrepreneurship. Are we together? But some schools are, because they then develop business clubs and allow young students to run a business enterprise. And I'm fortunate that I am the chairman of Junior Achievement Zimbabwe, where it's a non-profit organization, and we go into schools, particularly lower six students, and we teach them 4 things: entrepreneurship, financial literacy, job readiness, and successful lifestyles. So life orientation skills. And so we are plugging the gap by making sure that we take these programs. They then have to set up a company while they are students, open it within 1 school term. They run for the 3 months of a term, close it, and we check their books whether they're profitable, how original the idea was. And this is all in a quest to get them, to get the entrepreneurial bug, going. Then we move on to university. And there's an organization called Boost Fellowship. And Boost is an organization that was set up primarily for that. And I certainly offer them support, because what they do is they allow university students to do the same thing, form a business, run it, and then they compete nationally. That competition then goes worldwide, and university students are asked to compete. And I think the University of Zimbabwe has been a winner of such a competition worldwide. When we come to junior achievement, we won the award once, in the world, with a school here out in Tenwell winning that award. So we are catching up with the rest of the world in that sense of making sure that we tweak the curriculum and include, the entrepreneurial studies. Again, to the credit of government, they've come up with innovation hubs. And what are innovation hubs? Again, those are, using STEM, for example, to form businesses around the STEM subjects. And so I think we are in a phase now where we are starting to change the curriculum in order to encapsulate these issues, to make sure that we are not producing just workers, but also people who will leave school, not worry about even looking for a job, but immediately launching their own enterprise.
Okay. So when you were talking about Jays, I remember I was in Maris Brothers Nyanga, and I was in Jays and Millennial Club.
There you go.
The one from Stuart Bank, I think. So I know we used to watch movies and collect some money that we would use to donate to the nearest charity home, which was the Mount Melody Children's Home.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but then, back then, we used to have some evergreen opportunities. We would know that if it was maybe a movie, we're going to get the funds to donate to the charity club. So, what are some of the evergreen opportunities that you can find in the Zimbabwean business ecosystem?
So things evolve. You are saying marvelous back then, that worked. Now people have movies, isn't it, on their phones? Okay? And so the demand for that business is going to go bust, right? But what's the new thing? There's AI, isn't it? You know, there's all, I mean, multimedia. There's TikTok. You know, people are formulating, they've got millions of followers and they're monetizing that. So I don't think we ever actually run out if you are looking for opportunities. But you got to evolve with the time. You got to look at what the in thing, what's the popular thing, what's the money-making thing. I mean, you know, even sports and entertainment. When we grew up, my parents were saying, Nigel, don't go and play soccer. I was a great soccer player, by the way. I also played basketball at a high level. I have colors for Zimbabwe. I represented Zimbabwe at the Africa Games. Okay? But guess what? You were not allowed to do that. Now you could even run an academy, you know, for these sports and make a lot of money. Are we together? So I think we must evolve with the times. We must, as young people, I call myself young as well, we must stop, you know, finding excuses, you know, not to do things. But we must be really inquisitive. We must travel. Exposure is another thing that can lead to business ideas. I've just come back from the US and I walked into a nursery school to pick up my niece. And that school is at another level. They do different things. Are you with me? Now, already my entrepreneurial spirit was saying, I could uplift this entire school and what? Bring it back home. Are we together? So I think the world never stops evolving. And if young people can tune in when you're watching TV, you're not just watching, but you are watching to absorb, to learn. When you are reading, you're not just reading a book, but you're allowing your creative juices to go. What they're describing in those books can be brought right here.
Okay. Sis Emresh, over to you.
Yeah, so I think a huge takeaway from the discussion Nigel is about exposure. We need to get the exposure. I think as young people, I think that's the intake.
I mean, Simba, the other way of exposing, now you can get online and Google anything, isn't it? So I don't necessarily have to travel there. I can see it, I can watch it online. I can also inquire from the softwares that are available, the AI software, the chat, GDP, GP, there are so many of them, aren't there? And you can ask a question and it tells you. What more do you want? You must stop making excuses.
Okay, so what are the key requirements that you need to be in place for you to start a successful business?
I think you need a plan. You need a goal. You need something that's appealing, I think. They say whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. So in other words, if you can imagine it vividly, if you really want it, the capacity of the human being is quite unlimited when you want something. Okay? And then you draw up the plan. You research it. You pilot an initiative where you run the pilot. You test it at a small scale. And then you develop systems and processes to be able to scale it. I think then you've got the ingredients for a business. Then you must look at yourself or yourselves as a team to say what capacity is required for us to run that business. So you develop your skills. You become specialists. You have division of labor. If it's a partnership, somebody takes care of the money, somebody the marketing, somebody the people. You need a structure. And then you roll out your strategy, you deploy tactics, and you remain agile to the conditions out there. The conditions out there can be punitive. Hyperinflation, currency fluctuations, all these are risks that you must identify that could actually impact the business. And your responsibility as a team is to make sure that when things go haywire, you are alert to the developments around you and make sure that you can respond in a dynamic way. And what do we call that? Scenario planning, isn't it? Your worst case, best case, middle case. And whatever is in between, the shades of gray in between. That's what it takes. And then, of course, money. And money will always follow a vision, by the way. Money will always follow solid character. If you're a solid, trustworthy person, you can find money. And where do you find money? Your own finances. You must save. Otherwise, it's not your business. Okay? So self-finance is a big thing. Then your friends. I told you my first business was with my friends. My bank was with my friends. So friends are a source of money. Family. I told you my wife allowed us to sell the family property. Okay? And then you go to the financial institutions. Now don't go to a Chimbadzo type organization. Okay? You want ideally to go to a pension fund, an insurance company. They are more patient with their money. I would approach them before I even approach a bank. But a lot of you run off as youth, uninformed. You want to go to a bank. That's expensive money.